To know is about your creativity projects that you've got going on right now.
The midlife field guide thing. Yes,
it seems very interesting.
Yeah, so I've started this weird new creative project called the Midlife Field Guide. And it's basically a friend and I who are both in the Gen X zone of our lives, which I guess we kind of loosely define as like 40 to 65, somewhere around there. You know, a lot of people going through the same kind of life questions or challenges that don't have a lot of answers around them. And we're doing kind of a year of public experiments on our own lives to try and figure out midlife. And so it could be anything from things about your physical health or your purpose or identity or meaning or your mental health or your finances or your community social friendships, like any of those things that people kind of wrestle with at midlife. We're trying to design life experiments to just go do a bunch of it and see if we can be like A, figure it out for ourselves, and B, whether what we're doing will be useful for other people thinking about the same life issues.
And where are you doing this? Like,
so we're doing it all online, and it's a mix of different places. So the primary home is an email newsletter on Substack.
Okay.
And there will also be video stuff on YouTube. There'll be a podcast that comes out as part of it, and then some of the clips for certain things will end up on like TikTok and Instagram Reels and things like that too. So we both have media backgrounds, and a lot of the things that we talk about don't define yourself by one media platform. Try and be known for doing something and then be relevant where it matters to your audience. So we're trying to walk the talk a little bit, but I'm slightly daunted that and worried that we may have bitten off more than we can chew. So we'll see how much we do beyond the newsletter when push comes to shove.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's interesting, because you were talking about that you're in media. So one of the questions I had is media for marketing or marketing for media.
You need both. Like, it's so like, I mean, yeah. So maybe I should start. Is that I guess so. If you're in marketing, I feel like a media mindset is almost a necessity now. Is that we're kind of past this age of we can just buy your attention or interrupt your attention or steal it or hijack it or whatever the horrible term is that you can choose for how you want to do it. I think our society kind of ran by those rules for a long time, when you didn't have any options to do it otherwise. Like, we kind of were like, if you want to listen to free music on the radio, or if you want to watch your favorite TV show, there's going to be ads in there, and that's part of the deal. And we don't have to do that anymore. And I don't think a lot of marketers have realized that the old things don't work as well, and that unfortunately for them, the better path is to actually make things that people want to spend time with, which is harder work. You actually have to make things that are interesting and valuable for a particular group of people. So that's kind of the media for marketing piece. But if you make media, you also have to market it. Is the other flip side, is that once you make something, you can't just put it online and expect people are going to find it. Once in a blue moon, the algorithm might take your thing and show it to a ton of people. But the much better bet is to think about how media companies act, which is when they have a show, or if you have a movie coming out, you tell lots of people about it. You will see billboards, you will get ads for it, you will see the celebrities who are in the movie getting interviewed all over the place, and in the New York Times or whatever it is. You have to go to where the audience already is and tell them about the exciting thing that you've made for them. And most content creators or people in marketing who make media don't give enough time or attention or effort to marketing the thing that they've made. So not enough people end up spending time with it. That was a really long answer, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Well, yeah, that brings us to your book, right? Earn It. Like,
Yeah.
This is what what you're talking about is exactly what your book is about. Do you consider yourself a media maker, or do you consider yourself a marketer?
So it's so funny. I think if you asked a bunch of people, like who I am or what they think of me, it's probably like he's a podcast person, or he does branded content, and I feel like in my heart I'm neither of those. Right. And I realize this is really dumb because I've written a book about branded content, like how to actually make content as a marketer that people like spending time with, and all the lessons for marketing came from a background in the media. I think at my heart I'm a creative person who likes telling stories and likes solving interesting problems with creativity. I like making things that people enjoy spending time with, or that they remember or talk about, and that's been kind of the one ingredient that has let me do the media stuff, and then that also let me pivot into doing some marketing things of helping other people learn how to make things that people actually enjoy spending time with. So I don't know, at my heart, probably a creative person. Right. Yes, yeah. I have this thing where I, like, for my newsletter, I've had this thing that I've really enjoyed doing, which is making fake New Yorker cartoons with AI. And I don't let the AI like come up with the captions or anything like that, but I have ideas for cartoons, and I'm not a good enough artist to make them, and so I just like, you're a New Yorker cartoonist, make a cartoon of this or whatever, and here's the caption. And one of the ones I made recently for this midlife project was kind of like, what's my midlife story? And part of it is like, I realized like I don't want to be known like, you know, if I'm at 90, I don't want to look back and be like, I sure did a great job as a marketing consultant, you know. And so anyways, I had to make this New Yorker cartoon of like my tombstone, and like that it's me from like heaven with angel wings looking down weeping, just saying like, you know, marketing and podcast consultant on my tombstone. I'm like, that's not what I'm kind of realizing. This is one of these midlife things, is like, that is actually not what I would like to be remembered for. Right. I hope it is that I'm able to make things that people enjoy spending time with, and have a quirky approach to it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, with the book, right? It's about earning attention, and you know, the attention economy has almost become a meme. Right? You were talking about the New York Times, Ezra Klein talking about attention in politics, says, you know, you earn it, right?
I couldn't believe it. Like, you shared that with me, and I was like, I can't believe that Ezra Klein just said you can't buy attention anymore, you have to earn it. I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good for my book.
So it's good for your book. So there's the question. Like, do you need to write a new book, or can politicians use Earn It to win elections?
I feel like anybody can use Earn It. Like, it's funny, like when one of the things that I've learned is that, you know, the more specific you are in the audience that you're choosing when you make something, the more relevant it is for that group of people than if you try and make something for everybody. Like, you're much more likely to have something that people enjoy if you pick 10 people and really understand who those 10 people are, than trying to serve 1 million people who have like really diverse interests. But often if you target 10 people, you'll end up with 1,000 people. You know, and so my book is really for marketers. But can you apply it to politics? Can you apply it to, you know, being a content creator? Can you apply it to just being a person who posts on Facebook or LinkedIn? All of those things. Like, I think the principles of having empathy and trying to understand the person you're trying to reach, and thinking about where you can create unique value for the other person on the side of the conversation that you're in, is a great skill for anybody to develop. And you can explore what that means, you know, in person talking to somebody. You can explore what it means making videos or audio or newsletters or all sorts of different things. But I think the key piece is make something that is worth the other person's time if you want to have a relationship with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, this project that I'm working on is like an education project, and I don't think it's necessarily a meme, except for maybe, Donald Trump saying things like, communists and anarchists and agitators and people who don't know what the hell they're doing, right? And I kind of fit into the people who don't know what the hell they're doing meme, right?
You know what I like though, honestly, is like you're doing an experiment right now also, right? Like you're doing a life experiment doing this. I think this is like I think that's how we all find our way and find answers to things that we're doing, is like experiments are like kind of gold for all this stuff, right? Like even education wise, like you learn, like I'm kind of obsessed with experiments, like life experiments right now. But I just feel like, we all learned experiments in school as part of like basic science or whatever. And it's like, find an interesting something like, problem, have a hypothesis, design an experiment, collect it, figure out what you learned, and move on. I feel like we kind of all do this subconsciously day to day. Anybody who thinks like some politicians that they have all the answers, I think they're sadly mistaken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
No. That's good. That's exactly what we're sort of talking about here, is that experiment, right? So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's like starting a podcast?
Well, there's a bunch of different advice. So I would say for anybody starting a podcast, there's a few things you have to keep in mind. And I think one is do something that you're actually excited about. Like do something that you're curious about, that you want to learn more about, or you think that you want to be able to share with people. So that's one part. Another part is know why you're doing it. Like what's your goal in making the podcast? And for most people, it should probably be that, like, I'm happy to be making the podcast, that I'm getting a benefit out of making it and getting to talk to people or sharing my thoughts or whatever you design the podcast around. I think a lot of people will come in and be like, well, I've got to be the number one podcast and get to Joe Rogan numbers and start, millions of listeners and making money. That's an unlikely scenario that's going to happen.
Right.
It's an amazing experience to make a podcast because you have conversations and do a lot of thinking around things that you're interested in. You end up learning a lot and becoming like a better person for having all sorts of conversations and digging into something you're curious about. On the flip side, thinking about who your audience is, who are the people that you want to reach, and having a really clear idea of who those people are and what problems they might be dealing with that you can solve with this podcast. Finding an intersection between something that you're interested in or that you have interesting expertise or curiosity about that other people are going to value if you create in the world. That's kind of the secret sauce for anything that you put out there, but certainly a podcast, because you want people to spend a lot of time with it. And then, the other really big one is just sustainability. I think a lot of people get very excited by new creative projects and they're like, I'm going to make a podcast. And they start making a thing and they decide, I'm going to put it out every single week. And then life catches up with them, or it doesn't turn into a giant thing right away, and someone gets sick or something gets busy at work, or they go on vacation and they miss a week or two and then they never come back to their podcast. I think that's why it's important. It's something you care about, where you can see that you're impacting other people with it, but also designing something that, like, I can actually fit this into my life on a regular basis, and if I want to keep it going, almost all things are kind of a consistency and patience game when it comes to doing this. Is like, just be there on a regular cadence for a long period of time so people know that they can trust and rely on you're going to deliver the goods there. You're not just going to disappear. When you kind of do all those things, I think generally you have a pretty good chance coming out of the gate of, like, you know, having a meaningful thing for you and for the audience, and that you're not going to burn out or let it disappear too quick.
Right. Yeah. So that was one of the I think the last time we spoke, I was talking about, you know, how in the book, you really put a lot of emphasis on, you know, near perfection, like having an amazing, you use a lot of words like the superlatives, right? Amazing,
very high bar, very high bar.
Yeah. And you know, when you're dealing with you know, corporations that are marketing their and hiring people and whatnot, and you know, I just put Linux on my laptop because Windows wasn't running on it anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's free. So, you know, I'm using free software and whatnot and learning as I go. So when I think of the bar that you know has been sort of set, it's daunting. I just don't think I'm going to reach the like greatness, right?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Like, I think there's like it's a great question, right? And I think it's a sliding scale, like, or it's a spectrum of how you think about quality, and it depends on who you are and what your resources are, but also depends on how you define quality. So if I'm like a giant, you know, billion or $1 trillion software company, you know, the expectation of like all the things you do with your brand, you know, how much you spend on a TV commercial or how much you spend on your actual user experience in your product, like all those sorts of things would say, like, there's a bar for, like, this is what you want people to think about your brand. Your podcast shouldn't be down here. Like, your podcast should not be like two people on Zoom talking unedited for 3 hours with no preparation and put it out and being like, there's our $1 trillion company's podcast. And I also think if you're a person who's doing this for a fun project or a project to develop yourself or whatever it is, and you're not part of a $1 trillion company, and you don't have studios and gear and all these things up the yin-yang, there's never been a better time to be able to make something that is high quality, and it's because things like DSLRs and microphones are all much more affordable. These things might have been tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to do this stuff. The distribution is almost all free or very, very cheap to be able to put something out to the world. I think the part is, editorially, when you're making something, are you making something that is valuable for the people on the other side of the equation? Like, I keep coming back to this idea, like, this has to be a really highly valued gift by the people who are going to receive it if you want to have an impact on them, and if you want people to actually spend the time and come back over and over and over again. That's where the quality bar is, and everybody as an audience member gets to decide, was that a good use of my time? And if the answer is no, they're never coming back. And, you know, so I think in some ways, if you think about it as an audience member, our bars are really high, that we're not going to suffer through crappy stuff for very long anymore, because there's a zillion things we can choose from. So when I talk about like that high bar for quality, it's kind of like you have to be worth spending time with. And like if there's 100 things to choose from, people might only have time for 3 or 4. The more specific an audience you get and the more relevant you make your content, the more likely you are to get people to say, like, you're in my top 3 or 4 things because you've made something that I can't get anywhere else that I really like spending time with. And I don't know, just to be clear, that like does not have to be like 4K lighting, studios, Richard Attenborough narrating it or whatever, I think it just has to be worth spending time with. And sometimes that means doing your homework. Sometimes it means editing out boring stuff. Sometimes it means getting interesting people to talk to. Sometimes it means really understanding your audience and choosing the guests and your topics for exactly the thing that no one else is talking about, but everybody's interested in. So I don't know, maybe that's still really daunting. I don't know, but I hope it's like, it's at the big end, budget's part of it. For most of us, it's like, just don't waste everybody's time with something that's mediocre. Like, right. do your best to make something that people will be excited about.
Yeah, that was the one thing in the book where you talk about it being not about you, but from you. And the way this is set up, I mean, you don't see me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're not going to see me.
I feel like it's a very deliberate choice, by the
way. But I think this is the direction that I'm going to be going is talking to people who are interesting and know what it is that they're talking about, and but yeah, the production value is going to be more zine-like.
Well, I think if you choose your aesthetic, and as long as it looks decent and it sounds good, it's really like, are you having interesting conversations, or are you editing out the parts that don't work, or whatever it is?
Right.
I think you're fine. Like, it's, there's lots of lo-fi stuff that people spend lots and lots of time with. We all spend, maybe not all, but like a lot of us spend a lot of time watching content that is created just on a phone. So, in some ways, and this is the part I love about where we're at, is that the best ideas win more than the people who have the most money. I mean, it helps if you have both. Right. But like, good ideas can go and have a really big impact in a way that they couldn't before. If you had to go to a gatekeeper at a media company before, and that was the only way you could get distribution, now you can put it out. Hopefully you know where to tell the right people about it. If it's really good, those people will tell other people about it, and it just starts picking up and getting passed around. But people will not tell other people about something that's mediocre. Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, have you seen this new really mediocre thing? I give it a 5 out of 10. You should check it out. Like, no one says that.
Yeah. I usually listen to podcasts when I'm driving. So I'll and then you can't change them.
Yes.
And sometimes you're like, oh no, I wish I could change this. But yeah.
It's funny too. Like if you think about what criteria it is, like if you listen to a podcast, what are the things that would make you actually remember to take the link of the podcast and text it to somebody and being like, you should have listened to this.
Right.
And so I would say, like, for me, it has to either be just like a really unbelievable story or podcast, something where you're like, this is amazing, or it has to be hyper relevant to the person I'm sending it to. So,
right. It's their interest.
Yeah. If I don't know, I'll just make some stupid thing up, but like, if it is something about like, here's like, a deep dive on pickleball technique or something like that as an hour-long podcast about pickleball strategies, or, you're going to send it to somebody who's a pickleball fanatic. You're not going to send it to your grandmother, right? Like,
that's right.
Unless she's a pickleball fanatic. That relevance matters a lot, and that's when we talk about like focusing and really knowing your audience. If you make a show for that audience, they will tell each other about it. If you make a good thing and put it out there for that group. So if you're talking about making a show for educators who are wanting to rethink the future of education or think about different ways, to explore education as we go forward, that's a very specific group of people. Like, that's not everybody.
Right.
And making a show and talking to people who are interested in that and digging into the issues that matter for those people, if that show doesn't exist and it's good, they will pass it around to each other. That'll be hey, you should listen to this. You should listen to this. Inside their own institution, inside, groups they might be in, or Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or whatever. Like I think that's the goal, is to make something where it's just hyper relevant for a group of people, that it's word of mouth worthy. Yeah.
Word of mouth. Yeah. All right. I guess, yeah, that's good. We're coming.
You know what? One thing I was going to say, by the way, just that I thought about when we were talking about the experiments
Right.
earlier on, and education. One of the things that I can't remember whether we talked about this last time, but there's a famous marketer named Seth Godin who's written a bunch of marketing books, and he's blogged every single day for just years and years and years and years. Just remarkable consistency. Like when we talk about consistency over time and sustainability, he writes very short, bite-sized posts every single day. Amazing. He wrote a manifesto about rethinking education. And I remember, this is in the early days of the podcast company, we made a podcast for an education company. And this was one of the things that really stuck out to me when I was researching it, was that he had this whole theory that schools are really just, were designed to like train factory workers, and to get people sitting in front of a room with a boss telling them what to do and being compliant and learning things by rote. That, these are all skills designed for preparing people for a certain type of workforce that was needed at a certain time. And that none of that is really particularly relevant for today's students, and what they actually need more than anything is to be taught how to solve hard problems and how to communicate with each other effectively. I'm sure there's more to it now. Those are things I remember, is like communicate effectively and understand other people, like have good interpersonal relationships, but teach them how to dig into solving hard problems. I was like, that's super interesting to me when you think about that. And I think in some ways, just to go back, like that's kind of what experiments are, right? Is there's a problem, let's see if we can solve it. And you experiment with different ways of trying to solve it and seeing what happens. I think it's like a really interesting, and this sounds so, I'm saying this out loud, and I mean, this is so obvious and so dumb. Hey, you should try an experiment if you have a problem and see if there's a solution. But I feel like there's something about, like, maybe like we've lost a bit of that, and that there should be like a focus on like, hey, there's a problem, you could just experiment and try and figure out how to solve this thing, rather than just Googling or asking other people how to do it, and teaching people that grit of like leaning into like I can figure this out, or I'm going to keep trying until I figure it out. All the best insights, I think, come from like doing and trying and stumbling and learning along the way. I feel like that's kind of why I'm liking this midlife field guide project so much. And I feel like even talking to you about your project with this, I feel like you're doing the same thing with this, and it probably, holds a bigger lesson in the world of education in some way, shape, or form too.
Yeah, and that's pretty good.
Is there any other stuff you want to talk about? Just off the cuff?
Just off the cuff?
Yeah.
No, I think that might, like, I think we're going to be done in 30 seconds here with this thing.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, here, I'll just stop it here.